How London controls speed in a world obsessed with velocity. Everything today is faster than it used to be. Markets react in milliseconds. Decisions are expected instantly. And yet, the most powerful financial center in the world does something counterintuitive. It slows things down. This matters now because speed is often mistaken for efficiency. In modern finance, faster execution feels like progress. Faster reaction feels like intelligence, and faster movement feels like advantage. But beneath the surface, speed creates fragility. It amplifies mistakes. It shortens judgment. It turns small errors into systemic risks. London learned this lesson early. While other markets chase pure velocity, the city focused on control, not by blocking speed, but by regulating how and when speed is allowed to matter. It understood that unchecked acceleration doesn't create stability, it destroys it. At first, speed was limited by necessity. Communication took time. Settlement required patience. Verification demanded human oversight. But as technology erased these limits, London made a deliberate choice. It preserved friction where friction protected the system. It accepted small delays to prevent large failures. This philosophy reshaped how the city operated. Processes were layered instead of streamlined blindly. Checks were added where automation threatened runaway behavior. Speed was treated not as a goal, but as a variable to be managed carefully. The result was subtle. Markets still moved quickly, but not recklessly. Reactions were fast, but not instantaneous. The system gained time to interpret signals, absorb shocks, and prevent cascades before they spread. This control of speed was not about dominance. It was about survival. Because when everything moves faster than understanding, collapse becomes inevitable. And London chose to build something that can endure speed without being consumed by it. This approach became more deliberate as markets accelerated. As algorithms replaced traders and automation replaced judgment, speed stopped being optional. Systems reacted in microseconds. Orders appeared and vanished before humans could observe them. Markets began operating at a pace that exceeded human comprehension. And that is where danger emerged. London recognized that pure speed without structure creates instability. When reactions happen faster than interpretation, markets begin amplifying their own noise. Small signals trigger massive responses. Feedback loops form. Liquidity disappears not because risk is real, but because systems anticipate it might be. So the city introduced restraint. Quietly, speed limits were embedded where they mattered most. Delays measured in milliseconds were added to trading venues. Clearing and settlement cycles were structured to slow finality just enough to allow intervention. Circuit breakers were refined to interrupt runaway behavior before panic could cascade. These were not obstacles. They were shock absorbers. By forcing the system to pause, even briefly, London gave humans time to re-enter the loop. Judgment returned. Context mattered again. Markets could still move fast, but they no longer outran comprehension entirely. This created a paradox. Slower systems became more competitive. Investors trusted them more. Institutions routed trades to environments where stability was prioritized over raw speed. Reliability began to outweigh velocity as a strategic advantage. Other centers experimented with similar ideas, but London's implementation was distinct. It was subtle. It avoided spectacle. It didn't frame restraint as protectionism or fear. It framed it as professionalism, a recognition that discipline, not acceleration, separates sustainable markets from fragile ones. As a result, speed became asymmetric. Some participants chased nanoseconds. Others focused on robustness. Over time, the latter gained influence. They attracted long-term capital. They weathered volatility better. They survived periods when pure speed collapsed into chaos. London didn't win by being the fastest. It won by being the most controlled. And that distinction continues to define its role in modern finance. The conflict emerges when speed itself becomes a weapon. As markets accelerated, some participants learned to exploit velocity rather than manage it. Tiny advantages in timing produced outsized gains. Strategies emerged that depended on reacting faster than competitors could perceive. Speed stopped being a tool and became a tactic. And that tactic began reshaping market behavior. London felt this pressure immediately. Faster participants created uneven playing fields. Liquidity appeared and vanished in flashes. Prices moved without depth behind them. Stability became fragile because confidence depended on mechanisms too fast for oversight. The system risked turning into a contest of reflexes rather than judgment. This is where restraint faced resistance. Those benefiting from extreme speed argued that any friction distorted markets. They framed delay as inefficiency. They pushed for ever faster execution, ever thinner margins, ever shorter horizons. But the city understood the danger. When speed becomes dominant, meaning disappears. Markets stop reflecting value and start reflecting reaction. So London drew a quiet line. It did not ban speed. It bounded it. Rules evolved to limit predatory behavior. Market structures were adjusted to reward depth over immediacy. Systems favored participants willing to commit liquidity rather than withdraw it instantly. The goal was not to slow markets universally, but to prevent speed from undermining trust. This balance was difficult. Too much friction discouraged participation. Too little invited instability. Each adjustment carried trade-offs. Each decision shaped incentives. And each miscalculation risked unintended consequences. But the alternative was worse. A market governed entirely by speed becomes brittle. Small shocks trigger violent reactions. Confidence evaporates without warning. And once trust disappears, no amount of velocity can restore it. London chose resilience over spectacle. It accepted slower reactions in exchange for deeper stability. It preserved time as a safeguard, not an inconvenience. And in doing so, it protected the system from its own acceleration. Because speed, left unchecked, does not create efficiency. It creates fragility. The climax arrives when speed finally meets its limit. A moment when markets move so fast that meaning begins to dissolve. Prices shift without conviction. Liquidity flashes and disappears. Confidence thins, not because risk is real, but because comprehension has fallen behind motion. This is the edge where acceleration turns from advantage into threat. London's response is never dramatic. It is architectural. The city doesn't fight speed head-on. It redirects it. It channels velocity through structures designed to absorb momentum rather than amplify it. Pauses are introduced not to halt movement, but to restore awareness. Systems are allowed to breathe just long enough for judgment to return. And when judgment returns, stability follows. This is a resolution of controlled speed. Markets continue moving quickly, but they move with memory, with context, with restraint. The system remembers that not every reaction deserves execution, and not every signal demands pursuit. London's lesson is simple but profound. Speed is powerful, but time is protective. In a world obsessed with immediacy, the ability to slow down becomes the ultimate form of control, not through force, not through prohibition, but through design, through systems that recognize human limits and protect them. Because markets do not collapse when they move slowly. They collapse when they move faster than understanding. And the city's enduring role is not to outrun the world, but to keep it from outrunning itself. Subscribe to join the journey. How